Hi, it's Nero here from Investment Rise. And have you ever wondered, when's the right time to buy an investment property? Or more specifically, is now the right time to buy an investment property? I mean, the number of times I've been asked that over the last 11 years that I've been helping people is countless, right? I cannot remember how many times people have asked me that question. And so that's why in this video, I want to give you 3 ways you can work out when the right time is to buy an investment property for yourself. But first, I want to read you something and see if this sounds familiar. Property prices will drop 40%, said this respected economist who I won't call out. Our property prices are at record highs. Debt levels are at record highs. Japan was in a similar position and their property prices fell 60% since their peak. And then he goes on to outline all these other reasons why property prices will fall. And therefore, as a result of this very persuasive argument, he said that property prices would drop 40%. Oh, and he made this back in 2008 and continued into 2011, 2012, 2013, and he was talking about the Sydney and Melbourne market primarily. Now, what happened to the Sydney and Melbourne markets since he made this prediction? Well, conservatively speaking, prices have risen by 50%, right? They didn't drop by 40%, they rose by 50%, and in some suburbs they've actually doubled in value, right? Now, you might think, well, this guy's a bit of a quack, who cares? There is a problem though with these kind of major headlines and reports that come out, is that people believe them. I know a number of people who sold out of property at the same time because of these predictions. They sold their Sydney properties and Melbourne properties in 2011, 2012, thinking the prices were going to crash. Right? At the same time, here I was making my biggest investments in Sydney in 2011, and people told me I was nuts. They said, have you seen all these reports? Did you know the prices are at record highs? Did you know the prices haven't really risen since 2003? And that means that prices must drop. Well, we know what happened, right? But the other thing is that people, because of these reports, they chose not to invest in property. And as a result, they conservatively missed out on $500,000 in capital growth, potentially more. But worse, now, some 10 years or so later, they're obviously that much older. They may not be in a position to borrow as much because of new banking, lending restrictions, and prices have risen to a level where they may not be able to afford. So it's a double whammy. They had a huge opportunity back 10 years ago, but they missed it. And now they're looking back going, well, what do we do next? Right? And right now in 2020, you're also seeing people come out and saying, oh, prices are going to drop by 40%. Now, I don't know where this magical 40% figure comes from, but it certainly is something that obviously a lot of the property bears, people who believe that prices must drop because they need to drop because they're expensive. And they keep coming up with these 40% price predictions. Now, mind you, I'm not someone who always believes prices are rising in value. In fact, in 2016, 2017, I said that if you were looking for capital growth, especially over the short to medium term, the Sydney and Melbourne markets were not the places to buy an investment property. And I know countless people who criticized me. I copped a lot of flack online, but I also know many people who kind of believe what their so-called advisors or the headlines or their local real estate agents all told them, and they bought properties in 2016, 2017, and I know a number of them who today in 2020 wouldn't be able to sell their property for what they bought it for back in 2017. And that's a very scary proposition, especially if the property is also negatively cash flowed, as it often is in Sydney and Melbourne, which means that they have to fund it on a month-to-month basis without getting any capital growth. Right? So it's very, very important that we understand how to make the decision for ourselves about when is the right time to buy an investment property. And so I want to look at 3 ways. And number 1 comes down to your investment strategy. Right? What are you trying to do with property? I mean, there's a whole host of things you can do, right? You can do buy and hold, you can do renovations, developments, etc., etc. So what is your strategy that you're trying to do? Because recently I spoke to someone from Melbourne who said that he wanted to buy a property and flip it to make some quick cash, whether it's going to buy, subdivide and sell, or buy something older, renovate. He felt he had the experience, he was working in the construction industry. He had the contacts, so it certainly would make sense for him. But to do that in Melbourne right now was certainly a scary proposition. I had to caution him against it because the sales volume just isn't there for obvious reasons, right? Because if he wants to do a quick flip deal to make money, he needs to see lots of sales volume. He needs to see property turning over quickly so that when he buys and he does whatever strategy to add value, he can then sell it quickly. But at the moment, in Melbourne, the sales volumes aren't there. So that's why I said that strategy probably isn't right for Melbourne. So the question then is, well, what do you do? And I said, you had two options. You either had to change the strategy or change the market. Right? And I'll come back to that in a second. But really get clear on your strategy and ask yourself, is the strategy you're trying to implement, is it right for that particular market? Or more importantly, looking at the other way, is the market you're targeting right for the strategy that you're looking to implement? If not, you need to either change strategy or change market. Then the second category, or second criteria rather, to work out when the right time is to buy an investment property for you is the time frames. Now, are you looking to, as this gentleman was, as I mentioned earlier on, trying to make money quickly? Well, then you need to look in a market that's pretty hot, at least warm. There's lots of sales activity so that you can turn over property quickly, right? But at the same time, if you're looking to have a longer time frame, so if you're looking for a more passive buy and hold strategy, well, then really you need to ask yourself, do you believe that prices will be worth more in the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever your time frames are, right? You're not trying to make money next 5 weeks or the next 5 months. The media headlines really shouldn't be scaring you because they're irrelevant to you. It's like the media headlines, back in the GFC period, they're irrelevant to you. All right. So you need to ask yourself, do you believe that prices will rise in value based on supply and demand primarily? Okay. If so, then it certainly would make sense that now would be a good time to buy an investment property. The thing to really double down on your research is to ensure that you can get your property rented quickly. All right, that's the key thing, because there are certain markets at the moment where it is a challenge to get those properties rented, and so you'd want to really stay away from those particular markets, even if you believe they're going to rise in value at some point in the future, because now may not be the time to buy in those particular markets. So then you'd either wait or, again, choose a different market. Okay, so strategy and timeframes. The third thing you need to look at to ensure that now is the right time to buy an investment property is to work out your own affordability. And what I mean by that is this: I'm not looking at your borrowing capacity. No, what I'm asking you is, are you regularly spending less than you make each month? Are you saving money each and every month? Is there a surplus in your budget on average each month? Now, I know there are some months where you may have a bad month, unexpected expenses. We understand that, but we're talking about a month-to-month basis on average. Because if money into your household is pretty much equal to money out, and in some cases money out is more than money in, then I would strongly say that buying an investment property is a very high risk strategy for you, and you'd want to really reconsider. Right? And whenever I tell people this, they say, but Nero, you told me we can get positive cash flow property with also high capital growth, so why wouldn't I necessarily buy that? And I'm like, yes, you can, but remember, when you're targeting property that's got both positive cash flow and high capital growth, you're in it for the longer term, right? You're going to be there for at least 3 years, 5 years preferably, and if not even longer than that. And over that time, anything can happen. You might have an unexpected expense associated with the property, or even personally. And if you don't have any money as a buffer, well then what are you going to do? Would you need to sell the property earlier than you expected and miss out on some capital gain? Or what happens if you lose your job? Or you go from 2 incomes down to 1, for example. Can you still handle your personal cash flow situation? Right? So you need to really be clear on your own monthly surplus and ensure that there is more money left at the end of the month before you look to invest in property. But if you are in a position where you are saving at the end of every month, so there's more money in than going out, you have enough money saved up for a deposit either in cash or you have equity in your property, and your strategy is to either for the longer term, which means then you'll find the markets that are growing or expected to grow over longer term, or if your strategy is a short term, then you need to go and find those particular markets, right? You can't just say, oh, well, this particular market, this suburb that I live in, or the 5 suburbs around me, they're not doing so well, so I'm not going to invest in property at all. Well, because remember, different suburbs around Australia, and I do mean suburbs, not just cities, but suburbs, are performing very, very differently. So yes, you need to do your research. You need to ensure that you are matching the market to your strategy, to your timeframes, and to your affordability. If you can do those 3 things successfully, then you can work out for yourself when is the right time to buy an investment property. If for whatever reason you can't find a market that matches those 3 things for you, then maybe now isn't the time to buy an investment property, right? So really, if you can do those things for yourself, then you can stop worrying about these scary headlines. You can stop believing these scary headlines, which can seem very persuasive and great in theory. But you could be then the kind of guy who, sells their home in 2012 in Sydney, or chooses not to buy an investment property in Melbourne in 2013 because of these scary headlines, and then stands back and watches as prices rise $500,000 or more. So be very, very careful about these media headlines. Work out the answer to the question for yourself, and then you'll be in a much better position to make an informed property investing decision.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video valuable and you're thinking you might like my help to help you find an investment property, then head on over to nerocall.com to discover our unique 5-step process that's helped my private client group purchase now well over $66.2 million worth of property. And then if you like what you see, you can book in for a half-hour phone consult with me personally. Either way, thanks again for watching.